This is an interview in the series Women Around the World, a mosaic of feminine impressions and inspiration in times of Corona. My name is Cécile Masson. I'm coach, host, and the author of Rose Letters to Love to Life. I have the pleasure to share this virtual space with Stella Litton this morning. Welcome, Stella.
Morning, Cécile.
Stella, you are a coach and you live in the UK. Would you like to introduce yourself a little?
Yes, I work with women who are moving into a new chapter of their life. And as an MBIT coach, I work very much at the heart, head, and gut level. So I work with the intelligences of the head, heart, and gut. And it's about bringing that person into alignment and into a coherent state so that they can step forward wisely on their unique path, whatever and wherever that may be.
How does this coronavirus impact you on a personal level?
For me personally, it hasn't made a tremendous difference because I work from home. So from that point of view, there's really not very much change. And a lot of my conversations, the majority of my conversations are actually webinars like this. So it hasn't really made much of a difference, other than obviously, like everyone, I'm isolating at home, and my husband works at home. I have two sons. One of them is just out of university, so he's not actually working at the moment, but it has had an impact on him. And my other son is also working at home. So we're all at home, but all in different rooms.
And as a professional coach, in how far do you notice what's going on with your clients?
One of the things that I have become very aware of in recent conversations, because I work predominantly with women, is that they are really stepping up to be of service in whatever way they can, coming from a place of compassion for others. And that is coming across in almost every conversation that I have these days. So yes, I think it's very much about looking, not, the focus doesn't seem to be on survival as such, but actually on service, being of service, helping in any way that they can, particularly with regards to those on the front line, so the essential workers in the NHS, for example. So just really helping in any way that they can.
What made you decide to work specifically with women?
I think it was just a natural evolution, really. But also, I'm a sister, a wife, a mother, a daughter, and I feel that women, you will understand this as well. Women now need to step up we need to take a leading role, not only in our own lives, but also in how we step out into the world and how we influence those around us, whether it's within our immediate environment, within our families, within our friends, and also at work. And I feel that women haven't always been doing that, the majority of women. But I think there is a growing awareness now and an awakening amongst women that actually we have a vital role to play. And that feminine role is very different to a male role. And it's one that really needs to take center stage now. And for women to be taken seriously and treated with equality. I mean, we've all seen one of the things that has come about from coronavirus is the incredible rise in domestic violence, which in this day and age is actually shocking that that can still happen. And I think it's for us all to really, look at that and consider how we as a society, but also as individuals, are enabling that to happen. So whether you are, I'm a mother with 2 sons, so I'm acutely aware when they are talking about the language that they are using. And there have been occasions where I've had to say, you need to think about that. That's not right. And I think it's very easy for us to look at men and say, men have got to treat women equally. But I think as women, we now also have to ensure that we are stepping into our birthright to be treated equally. That is the right that we are given at birth, regardless of our gender. We are born into this world the same. But it's what happens after that birth. And that's something that we all have to take responsibility for.
So you're saying that women themselves need to take responsibility for as well, as you say, that you need to sometimes, between brackets, correct your sons in their wording, to really also, as a woman, step up in her own authority, in her own being.
Yes, to ensure that you have a right to be treated equally in all respects. And yet I'm sure that there are lots of women in leadership positions that are still doing a disproportionate amount of other work around the home, in caring for children. And we have to make sure that we are very aware of that, that we don't enable that inequality in the way that we are behaving. And I know that I have been guilty of that in the past. And sometimes it's a balance, but I think it's something that we have to be very aware of, and that has to change.
So, excuse me, with embraining, which is a relatively new, coaching technique, how does it make you more aware of that birthright, that basic human right that you have as a woman, to stand equal next to men? And how far does this methodology help you to bring that sensing across that we are equal?
Well, as you'll know with embraining, you're working predominantly with the 3 centers of intelligence within the head, the heart, and the gut. And for me, actually dropping into my body and particularly into the gut is where I have that sense of your core identity and who you are as a unique individual, your unique purpose in this life, your core identity in line with your values, which are held very much in your heart. But that core identity of who you are is sensed within your gut. And it's also what your area, the prime function is one of safety, preserving self, and also mobilization. So actually being connected and in alignment with your head, with the prime functions of your head, the prime functions of your heart, and the prime functions of your gut are vital. The head is very much about processing thought, your cognitive perception and how you make meaning in the world. The heart is the highest expression is compassion for self and for others. And it's also where you process your emotions, how you relate to people, and your sense of value, where you hold your core values. And as I say, with the gut, it's very much about your core identity, who you are, and preserving yourself, safety, and then mobilizing yourself. So being in alignment and having those 3 integrated is really important in order for you to step forward as who you are.
And when you say the guttural area, when we talk about certain practices, we drop even deeper. We go really to the pelvic area where that deeper transformation can happen as well as women and as men. So it's not specific gender, but it's for both gender. It's for men and women. It's equally valid to reach at the whole human being, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
But where you were saying, when you were talking about the compassion that is nestled in the heart region, and earlier on you were saying many women are actually taking front stage at the moment by caring for the bigger communities. Could it be that the caring and self-compassion could be just slightly raised at these times and be more in our center as well of our own awareness that we need to also take care of ourselves, not only take care of the families and the bigger communities?
Yes, definitely. And again, being connected very much at the heart and gut level gives you that awareness of the boundary of who you are, what you can actually do physically and energetically. So it's that safety aspect is making sure that you do not go beyond what is safe and wise for you. And when you are in a balanced and coherent state, in alignment, you have that awareness. When you're connected really very, very deeply, the foundation of who you are is in the gut. And it's the gut that actually develops first.
So you're saying that by being in alignment, you're also more in the position to be in an intuitive modus, in intuiting what is needed for yourself, but also for others?
Yes, and one of the things that we learn within MBIT and embraining is that 90% of the signals, 80 to 90% of the signals actually come up from the gut to the heart and the head, and only about 10% are going down to the body. So it's vital that you're really connected very deeply and you drop into your body and who you are. Otherwise, if you're in your head, you're only operating from 10% of your capacity.
So, but you're saying actually that by re-owning our senses, by re-owning our body as women, and by listening very deeply to the signals we get from our body as well, we actually operate in a very much healthier way than if we are just head on legs and going with the crowd that tells us what to do, that gives us images that what should be happening, that gives us frames of thought that do not correspond with our female, feminine, with our feminine nature. And I wouldn't necessarily say only feminine nature in the sense of biology, but also in the sense of spirituality in that sense.
Definitely, yes. It's just really very much about connecting with who you are and that sensing. And if there's any discomfort, if you intuitively feel that something is not right, then you're sensing that very much in your body at a gut level. And it's about building that awareness and taking the moment to pause and consider and reflect, and then to ensure that you are taking action that feels right for you and for the situation that you're in.
And that action could be actually to invite others to pause and take the deep breath, or to challenge others to say, hey, this doesn't feel right. So the action can be also in a conversation, it doesn't need to be necessarily in the movement. Is that
yes,
what?
Definitely. Yes, and one of the things that we do, one of the first things that we do within embraining before we actually start working with somebody, it's about connecting that person very much to a calm and balanced state, getting the nervous system very calm so that they're not in a reactive state, so that they're in a very calm and balanced place. Because when your nervous system is calm, when you are calm, you have that ability to observe, and so therefore to create more awareness and to pause before you react. And in that moment of pausing, you can respond rather than being in a reactive state. So it just gives you that time, and I think enables you to make wiser decisions.
So would that, I mean, you've been working in the workforce for a long time. You worked in business. Your husband has got his own business, so you know the challenges, the speed that's going on, the decision making. And yet you're saying we should all calm down and be in that space of more aware of our own being. I'm challenging you here a little bit. How is it? How should we do that in a context of, for instance, a corporate or in politics, where all is a question of timing, a question of speed, etc. Is there an essential conversation to be held as well?
Well, I think it very much in positions of leadership, regardless of your gender, but you want to make the wisest decision. And sometimes making a hasty decision is not the best decision. So therefore, if you are operating very much at a head level all the time, then you're not connected deeply to your intuition, to that gut instinct that we all actually rely on far more than we realize. And it's that intuition and that gut feeling that something is right or wrong that we need to be really connected to at this moment in time. And I would say that that's one thing that the coronavirus has actually enabled people to do, because we're not on that treadmill of rushing and movement. We're not going beyond all the time, beyond ourselves, rushing forward. It's being at home, not having that journey, is giving people time to actually be and to develop that sense more. And it will be very interesting to see what comes out of this period of isolation, for people, where their way of working, their way of operating has had to change. There's had to be a lot more flexibility. So it will be interesting to see what evolves from this. But I do think this has enabled people to pause.
And possibly also what you're saying, to appreciate the beauty of pausing and the beauty of slowing down and just be, rather than always think as just a head on legs. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's very much, everybody now is, I know myself, I mean, my focus has always been very much on the environment, but even more so now, taking that time to actually really appreciate what we have around us. And to me, it's not only the inner environment, but it's the outer environment that needs to change. Our inner environment, the way we're operating, but also the way that we are going out into the world. And actually the outer environment itself has got to change. And
when you speak about environment, outer environment, you mean the work environment in this case could possibly change, or do you mean nature as such?
Well, both really. I think our way of operating will impact on the working environment, but also I think a lot of our actions impact on the natural environment, and that's having a detrimental effect. And one of the things that we have all noticed and that I have appreciated living where I do is the peace from no planes, from no traffic on the roads. The air has a cleaner quality to it as well. So many of our actions at this moment in time, our lack of action actually is having a positive effect on the natural environment. And it's something that we take for granted, and I think we are all appreciating a lot more than we have done. And it's something actually that you touch on in your book Rose as well. And that's something that when I read your book really struck me. It's that conversation that we need to have about how women are treated, that our role within the world and the impact that we're actually having on our immediate environment, but also on the natural world. And I think that's a vital role that women need to take, and women look at things in a slightly different way. And actually I was reading last night. If I may, I'd like to just read, there's a paragraph that struck me last night, and actually I feel it fits in really well with what we're talking about now, and a woman's role and leadership. And it says here, I want to find a way to be a working woman, contributing to the world of business with all the femininity I have in me. If all the talents women are making such an effort to hide worldwide could be liberated, not only would business benefit from it in terms of turnover, but also the entire economy would take a very different turn. Maybe it is that paradigm shift which is so much needed to make this world a better place. And, you know, I think you later go on to say that, you know, women should show up in all their blessed femininity and dare to say no and define their own strategy and action. And I think that is so true, and what we need to do now. And for anyone who hasn't read it, it's a beautiful read. and a necessary read for men and for women. And we're talking about women, but I think also it is for men. Men have to be honest with themselves. Not only do women have to be honest and step forward, but men have to be honest. You know, whether you are a brother, a father, an uncle, you know, a partner, a husband, an employer, you have to be true to yourself and be honest with yourself and say, am I treating the women around me equally? Am I recognizing that birthright, or am I paying lip service to it? What actions am I taking? Am I really honoring that or not? So it's for both of us to step forward authentically and to be true to ourselves as well. So it's very easy to say, you know, women need to be treated equally, but the truth of the matter is that in a lot of positions of leadership, it is men. And those men are setting things in motion at this moment in time that will impact on women, on their wives, on their daughters, on their grandchildren. So they also have to accept that responsibility. And I can understand that it may not be easy to change things, but it has to happen.
So instead, well, you know, as a language person, I like playing with words, and you're saying we must, and there is a responsibility. So it's really about the ability to respond from a place of wisdom rather than a place of what we know. Because
Yes.
that's what I hear you say, actually, is that rather than say they must, we could actually say they may step up in a different way. And that they could be women and men as well.
Yes, we all have to, regardless of gender. We all have to recognize where, as women, we're not accepting that birthright, but also as men, that you are enabling anything less than the honoring of that birthright.
So this is really, you could say, the present that Corona is giving us, is that we could start and engage in a completely different dialogue between men and women.
Yes, yes. And I think the awareness of the increase in domestic violence has already started that conversation. And there is that awareness now.
And domestic violence, obviously, not only being against women, but also against children, and that includes boys.
Yes, and it can also be with men.
Exactly.
As well.
That violence, the violence between people in general.
Mm. But we know that the majority is obviously against women and children. And you know, as we said earlier, in this day and age, it's absolutely shocking and, you know, terrible indictment on where we are now, that is still happening.
So what you're saying is actually that in this time and age, that there is so much knowledge, that there is so much cognitive facts that we know, and yet we haven't been able to change our behaviors, or some haven't been able to change their behaviors.
Absolutely.
Is that be the proof from an MBIT perspective that the dialogue that was held up till now was purely cognitive, purely factual, and not really experienced as on a deeper level of inacceptance with regards to life?
Yes, yes. I think that's the framework within which we operate at this moment in time. And that has to change. And we all have to take responsibility, you know, as women individually, the way that we go out into the world and what we accept for ourselves. We have to accept and acknowledge that right we have, that we're given at birth. We are equal. And if we allow anything less than that honouring of that birthright, then we are enabling that to continue. And for men as well, they have to be honest with themselves and look at what is happening within their own life and the actions that they are taking, and to step forward truthfully. And I think that's something that we all have to do if things are to change. And we have a chance now, an opportunity to make a difference and to make a change.
You know, in the communication, in any communication that is happening, one says, the experts say at least, that one is not able not to communicate. Whatever one does, one is always communicating. However, because we have now the knowledge and also some of the methodologies to be really conscious of the non-verbal language that we have, to acknowledge that and to verbalize the sensing that we have because of these methods that are available, could be a great difference, and that be in the dialogue could take another shape.
Definitely. That's the sensing that we need in the world. We need to be operating from the whole of who we are, not from one particular center of intelligence, but we need to be a whole wise being. And in order to do that, we need to have all of the senses and intelligence that we have within us, and to bring that forward and to use it, and to use it wisely.
I mean, you know, obviously as an embodied coach, that the whole storytelling is happening in our head. The challenge you're facing is, what you're saying is that we actually should and could change the storytelling in gender dialogue in general, but also in how we respond to this new challenge we all face, all humanity is facing, which is the coronavirus.
And to look at that story and how we're perceiving that, but then to really drop down to who we are at a core level, and just instinctively and intuitively get a feel. How does that make us feel? And that immediately is dropping you into your body, as opposed to operating very much at a cognitive level. And you know, what's important to us now around that issue? What do we truly desire? And just get a feel for that, in a sense. Does that feel right for us? Is that the wisest way of being in this moment? Is it serving us? Not just us individually, but society as a whole. And if we start to build that sense and dialogue around that, then we can make a difference.
Stella Litton, thank you so much for this conversation. Would you like to just add one last thing before we conclude this exchange?
I would say the importance of breathing. It's your breath of life, But to breathe deeply, to take that breath down inside you, helps to anchor you into yourself and to a sense of balance. So to work on your breathing and to breathe in an optimal way will actually help you to connect deeply with yourself as well, who you are. So thank you, Cécile. It's been a really interesting conversation and a necessary conversation as well. So thank you.
Thank you for being together with me in this conversation, Stella. Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.